Alright, I took the boat out on July 4th, and I noticed this as I was launching. The bow eye is loose. And I went out anyway, and when I came back I was putting the boat on the trailer and I thought this bow eye was going to come out, but it didn't. And then when I got home I noticed this. The bow roller is missing. The entire center of it's gone. Just disappeared. So I've got replacement parts for this, and we have to fix this. And yes, when I was riding around, water did get in here while I was riding. And then we can come up here and I'll show you what's going on down here. This is through the cup holder here. And those are the bolts. To the bow eye. And as you can see, this thing is hollow. So my next project is to take out that bow eye, cut out all this, do some investigating, and then I'm going to reinstall the bow eye with some sort of epoxy concoction. But I want to do some testing first before we get into that. So I was watching a video over at the Tech Ingredients YouTube channel, and he said that if you mix epoxy with carbon fiber strands, you get a material that could be as strong as aluminum.
This is the strongest of all of the materials. It produces a gusset or a macroscopic structure that is as strong in modulus, compression and tension, as solid aluminum. It's as strong as metal.
So, thank you, Jeff Bezos. I got some chopped carbon fiber, 25 millimeter or 1 inch long. Let's take a look. Oh, a bag in a bag. Holy crap. Oh. Wow. Okay. That's the stuff. So my plan is to make a couple of samples. I'm going to do one of straight epoxy just to see how strong it is and compare it to a sample of epoxy mixed with this stuff. And I'm also going to mix in some wood flour, and that's just because I think it's going to be kind of a liquidy mess and I want to thicken it so it's something I can paste into the front of my boat without it running all over the place. Reduce sag. We're going to reduce sag with the wood flour because I don't think this will reduce sag, but it will provide tensile strength. So this is just tabletop epoxy. Dries real slow, but it's okay because it's hot. And it's 1:1. I'm mixing up 8 ounces total. Oh, that's not gonna work. Never mind. And we're mixing it by hand. So I'm just gonna eyeball this, I guess. Oh wow. Oh wow. Making this. That's pretty thick. Huh. I don't know if that's going to be an issue with the flow. Looks like I put a little too much carbon in it even. Yeah, I might not need wood flour as a thickener, which would be great, I guess, because this really is as strong as aluminum. Just one less step. All right, what I'm going to do now is let these dry into pucks, and then we'll rip them out of the cups and see if we can, I don't know, we'll do some really scientific experiments on them and see what we can find out. All right, it's been about 24 hours almost. Here's our samples. And these things got hot pretty quick. It was hot in the garage, and these were pretty much set and hard within 2.5 hours. And you can tell they kind of, the heat, they were hot within a few minutes, and it kind of melted and worked the cups a little. I don't know if you can see that, but here they are. So let's cut them open. That is solid. Oh, it's pretty cool looking. Has a different tone. Now, first thing I'm going to do is see if it takes being crushed into vise. So it has compressed in the vise, but it hasn't broken. Very scientific. So it deformed quite a bit, but it did not break. Okay, now the carbon puck. It is also compressing. That was my heel on the propeller. I am not bleeding. Oh. I would have to say it deformed slightly less. In fact, there's an imprint from the vise, but there really wasn't a change at all. I mean, the soft, thin layer kind of squished down, but once I got to the mass, I don't know, you can kind of see a little bit of compression stress there. Yeah, it compressed a little. Maybe it uncompressed. Did it fracture? Or is that just air pockets? Anyway, I'm satisfied that that's tough as hell. Science. Alright, now that the testing is out of the way, it's time to move on to the repair itself. This is me removing the bow eye hook, the old one. And this is the rotary tool I bought by Wen. It's my first Wen tool, it's my first rotary tool. And it did do the job, but I have to say it is garbage. It got hot really quick. I probably used this for an hour or two, and I had to shut it off a few times in order to let it cool down. And I don't know if you can see the little attachment is coming out of the handle here. I had to keep stopping and pushing the cutting wheel back in because the shaft was coming out of the attachment. And the cutting wheels themselves were garbage. Many of them cracked while I was installing them. And if you breathed on them wrong, they would crack and fly apart into little pieces. I also used a lot of picking tools, scraping tools, used needle nose pliers. It's kind of amazing that that was all filled with wood at one time and it literally just rotted away. I also spent the time to go around grinding and prepping the surface area around the location so that the epoxy would stick to it. You should always prep a surface if you want something to stick to it. And this is the finished product. For reference, here's before. Pretty gross. And this is where the new bow eye hook's going to go. I did sand that down and chip away the loose pieces before I started working on it. And this is me putting in the new bow eye hook. That white stuff is marine sealant that I slathered all over the place. And then I ended up propping it in place with a piece of foam. That's the insertion of the new bow eye hook from the inside. That's the piece of foam. And that's the little dam that I made out of cardboard and tape to hold the mixture as I pour it in to keep it from flowing all the way down the boat. I'm putting some bolts on. You don't see everything, but not only did I put 2 bolts on, but I put 2 bolts, a back plate, 2 more bolts, another back plate, and 2 more bolts. So that's going to give the carbon epoxy fiber mixture something to grip onto. Unfortunately, my action camera died, the one inside the boat, so you don't actually get to see the pour, but you are able to see me mix up 6 batches of this stuff. Ended up using almost a whole pound of carbon fiber and probably half a gallon of epoxy. The final mass was probably the size of half a football. It's quite a bit of material, as you'll see in a minute. Yeah, I found out only after the fact that this process is called forged carbon fiber, which is pretty fancy sounding for what it is. So here it is after it has all been poured in there. There's a big block of carbon fiber and epoxy. Just for reference, here's the before, and here's the after. Okay, it's about 40 minutes after I finished. Got some temperature reading device here. 63 degrees. 165. Right in the center of that mass. Shoo. Right underneath the boat. Oops. 141. Alright, it is the next day and the hull is back to its normal room temperature, and that bow eye hook is going nowhere. Nowhere. The epoxy dripped down. You can see a little bit onto the trailer, but that means it flowed out and filled every crevice as it hardened. And see here, I did forget to take off that piece of cardboard on the front, so that's kind of there forever, but that mass of carbon fiber and epoxy going nowhere. The winch that came with the boat was garbage, so I went ahead and replaced that too, along with a new bow roller. And yes, I do like the color blue. Just trying to spruce things up around here. And here it is installed. It looks beautiful. Also installed a safety chain just for false sense of security. And went ahead and changed one of my trailer wheel hubs because it was leaking. And while all that was happening, this came in the mail. So, after receiving a battery that I intended to use for my trolling motor and accessories, I decided to go ahead and install it. Down here, went ahead and put a battery switch in the top of the NOCO box that I strapped to the floor. This cable hanging out is for a charger. So that's good to go. And now that I've got a trolling motor battery, I went ahead and installed this trolling motor mount in the front of the boat. And I have this trolling motor plug that I installed. I went ahead and put this onto the end of the trolling motor. And while I was doing that, I was like, I might as well go ahead and install the stereo and the box that the stereo goes in. Went ahead and installed this on top. I just cut a hole in the top of the battery box. Now that all lights up. Stereo lights up. That's pretty cool. And while I was at it, I was like, if I'm going to do that, I might as well fill those speaker holes with speakers, and they light up. And the temporary battery switch that was in the speaker hole is now up under here. And that switch has a voltmeter on the face of it, but it doesn't work. So that's a bummer. And while I was at it, I was like, well, I might as well put in these foam bolsters that I bought. They were 25 bucks each. Went ahead and mounted the fire extinguisher in a safe place. And I even put cup holders on each side of the seats. So now we have cup holders. And of course, a fishing boat ain't a fishing boat without rod holders. Oh yeah. Styling. So yeah, all that happened. Oh yeah, and a bimini top. Went ahead and put in my bimini top. And after all this, oh yeah, when I put in this switch panel, there was a grab handle right here. I removed it and then I reinstalled a new one. This is a Scotty. So there's a grab handle move. And with all this fabulous work done to my boat, I decided it was time for a sea trial. After putting in at the boat ramp, we did have to go through a few miles of no wake zone, which was pretty boring.
So we're going to skip past that, and we're going to cut to the part where we're approaching Ponce Inlet to head out into the Atlantic Ocean. The main thing to notice here is how the water goes from smooth to not as smooth as we head out of the inlet. Hurricane Ernesto had just passed by 2 or 3 days earlier and was hanging out in front of South Carolina. And even though it was sunny and beautiful here and the ocean was not choppy, the ocean was big. There were swells on both sides of us, bigger than the boat going by. Technically speaking, however, we did do a sea trial in the Atlantic Ocean. I was able to turn around and head back in. I'm calling it successful because the bow eye held and did not leak any water. Coming back into the intercoastal waterway, we decided to go ahead and test a few of the other improvements I made, including the trolling motor mount and the stereo. We also did a speed test and we were able to max out at 30 miles per hour with the bimini top up. And we just did some general cruising as well. I have to say it's been a lot of work, but overall I am very pleased with the boat I bought on Facebook Marketplace. The important thing is that I'm on the water and have a reliable boat that doesn't need fixing or repairing daily. Morning, boat. Motherfucker.